When you go out and sit down at an ordinary cafe, you can easily pay $4 or even $5 for a cup of coffee. Grinding that coffee bean, brewing it, and pouring it into your cup takes only a few minutes. Yet on the same day, when you walk into a store or visit an e-commerce site, you can buy a t-shirt made of cotton, printed with designs, sewn, and shipped all the way from the other side of the world to your doorstep for $12. Doesn't something seem off about this? It takes months to produce a single t-shirt. The cotton must be planted in the fields, harvested, spun into yarn, dyed, cut into fabric, sewn, packaged, loaded onto ships, transported across the oceans, cleared through customs, and finally delivered to a store shelf or your warehouse. It involves the labor of dozens of different people, a massive logistics network, and significant energy consumption. So, how is it that the final product of this massive global operation can be sold for nearly the same price as a cup of coffee made in 5 minutes? To understand the secret behind that $12 t-shirt, you need to familiarize yourself with one of macroeconomics' most ruthless concepts: global labor arbitrage. A company takes its capital and moves it to wherever labor is cheapest in the world to reduce production costs. In the 1990s, riding the wave of globalization, Western textile giants closed their factories in their home countries. This was because they were required to pay minimum wages, deal with unions, ensure workplace safety, and provide insurance in their own countries. Instead, they turned their attention to the East. Here's how the system works. Brands don't own any factories. They just handle the design. Production, however, is outsourced to subcontractors. That is, local factories in Bangladesh, Cambodia, or Vietnam. The brand goes to the subcontractor factory and says, "You'll produce 1 million of these t-shirts for me, but I'll pay only $1 per piece. If you don't accept, I'll strike a deal with the factory next door." To avoid losing the contract, the subcontractor factory is forced to accept. To make a profit, they cut costs from the weakest link, the workers. Women working 14-hour days in makeshift buildings with no ventilation or fire escapes. That is the primary reason why that $12 t-shirt is so cheap. The labor cost of a single t-shirt has been reduced to just 2% to 5% of its total retail price. You're not buying the fabric or the design, you're buying the discounted price of exploited labor. In the 2000s, brands like H&M and Zara revolutionized the traditional concept of the fashion season, which typically occurred twice or 4 times a year, by inventing fast fashion. This gave rise to 52 mini-seasons a year. They put new products on the shelves every week. This was already a major revolution in itself. However, today, the situation has reached a far more dangerous level: ultra-fast fashion. The new generation of e-commerce giants relies not on fashion designers, but on artificial intelligence and algorithms to design clothing. Algorithms that analyze your social media clicks, the videos you watch, and the colors you like in real time instantly determine which clothing items will become trends. These companies don't produce thousands of t-shirts and store them in warehouses. In economics, this is called zero inventory cost. First, they offer the product for sale on a digital model within the app. If you click and place an order, a notification is sent to the factory in China at that very moment, and the product is manufactured and shipped directly to your home. When you eliminate all intermediaries in the supply chain, wholesalers, local distributors, physical stores, and shelf stockers, costs drop dramatically. Since they no longer have to pay the rent for expensive stores and shopping malls or their electricity bills, they can drive prices even lower. This may seem like a great efficiency gain for the consumer, but every efficiency has a dark side. Now let's get to the heaviest part of the bill. In economics, an external cost is a cost that isn't reflected in a product's price, but is borne by society or the environment. You pay $12 for a t-shirt, but the planet shoulders the remaining thousands of dollars in damage. On average, 2,700 liters of water are used just to produce a single cotton t-shirt. That's equivalent to a person's drinking water needs for 2.5 years. When you multiply that by the thousands or millions, you'll understand why massive water sources like the Aral Sea have dried up. What's more, most of these t-shirts aren't even made of cotton anymore. More than 60% of those cheap clothes you buy are made from polyester, acrylic, and nylon. In other words, from crude oil. Every time you wash that t-shirt in the machine, hundreds of thousands of microplastic fibers end up in the sewers, then in rivers, then in the ocean, and eventually in the stomachs of the fish we eat. But the real tragedy begins when we stop wearing those t-shirts. Fast fashion deliberately lowers quality. This is called planned obsolescence. That $12 t-shirt will have a sagging collar and faded color after just 3 washes. Because the system doesn't want you to wear that t-shirt for years. It wants you to throw it away and order a new one right away. Today, every second, a full garbage truck's worth of textile products is burned or buried in landfills worldwide. These clothes, which America and Europe have worn out, are shipped in bales to countries in Africa, such as Ghana, or South America, such as Chile, under the label secondhand. The West is dumping the environmental disaster it has caused into the backyards of helpless countries with its money. Despite this bleak picture, there is a macroeconomic question we must ask ourselves. Why do we keep doing this? The answer lies in the illusion of inflation and purchasing power. Over the past 30 years, housing prices have skyrocketed, education costs have doubled, and healthcare has become a luxury. For the middle class, accessing the real markers of wealth, such as a home or a car, has become nearly impossible. Consumers who couldn't achieve their big dreams turn to micro-consumption to feel a sense of control. You can't buy a house, but you can have packages delivered to your door every week. That small dopamine rush from a new outfit creates a temporary sense of well-being. Companies aren't selling you a t-shirt. They're selling you the feeling that I can still buy something. In the 1960s, the average family allocated 10% of their budget to clothing and bought only 25 items of clothing per year. Today, we allocate just 3% of our budget to clothing, but buy an average of 70 items per year. We think we're getting more for less money. In reality, we're just increasing our trash. The next time you're browsing e-commerce sites, stop before you add that $5 t-shirt, which looks unbelievably cheap with an 80% discount, to your cart, and remember the basic rule of macroeconomics. There's no such thing as a free lunch. If something is much cheaper than it should be, someone is definitely paying the difference. Sometimes it's a textile worker in Bangladesh, sometimes a drying river, And sometimes it's our own future. That t-shirt may say $5 on the label, but the cost to the planet and humanity is far too heavy for us to ever afford. Thank you for watching. Let's discuss this in the comments. How many items of clothing do you have in your closet that still have the tags on them and that you've never worn? And how can we individually break free from this consumerist mindset?